Part 93. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 921. Chapter 921 Smuggling Salt. After crossing the high mountains and ridges, they walked for about 7 or 8 days before they arrived at a so-called salt field. When Zhang Xiaoxiao saw the salt farm, he immediately understood that the salt produced here should be well salt. Because this area is not close to the sea, it is impossible to produce sea salt. Well salt is also very rare. Arrived at the destination, Yang Shiniu and Li Dawang found a salt man they knew well. There are many little bosses under the Anyan field here, and everyone has some connections. Of course they are these private salt dealers. How can these salt guys survive if they just rely on the salt field? Of course there are some private salt farms. They cannot make much money by selling salt to the government, but they can make a lot by selling it to these private salt dealers. Of course, this was done through their joints, and the government turned a blind eye. As long as you keep up with your filial piety, the government won't care what you do. Zhang Xiaoxiao went with Li Shiniu, Linda Wang, and they were not looking for the same person, so everyone found their own way. Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shiniu met Yantu. A 40-year-old man with a goatee and lowered eyes was loading tobacco leaves into a dry pipe. Li Shiniu hurriedly came up to salute. Li boss, I haven't seen you in the past few days, and you are getting better and better. That boss Li didn't even raise his eyes. He was obviously very familiar with Li Shiniu, and he could identify the person by his voice. Shiniu, are you here? I heard that something went wrong on your road last time. It's not that I heard about it, but I'm sure of it. Li Shiniu smiled awkwardly. Boss Li, I encountered bandits and many brothers died. I want to buy another batch of goods this time, please be accommodating. Hand over 5 coins and scattered silver. But Boss Li didn't pick up the money. Li Shiniu was shocked. Not picking up the money meant that it was a bad omen. Tianiu, how much silver are you planning to buy this time? To tell you the truth, there have been a lot of changes in our salt farm recently. The new owner above made it clear to us that now the salt has increased by 1 or 2 silver, and the minimum price is only 200 taels of goods can be sent out, otherwise we will not be allowed to send bulk goods. We have been in a relationship for such a long time. From your father to your brother, I can be considered an old acquaintance with you, but it is not easy to do business now. You have to be prepared in your mind, if you can accept the increase of 1 tael of silver, and you can also prepare to spend 200 taels of silver to purchase goods. Of course, it's not about doing business with anyone. Li Shiniu was shocked. Uncle Li, how come 1 kilogram has increased so much? It has increased by 1 tael of silver. We don't have much profit at all. It is just hard-earned money. Add in the 200 taels of goods, we also know the situation in our village. The last time the goods were purchased, almost all was lost. The villagers finally managed to collect 50 taels of silver this time. If you really do this, wouldn't we? Uncle Li, please be accommodating. Help us. Boss Li waved his hand. It's not that I don't help. It's not easy for any of you. I'm in this position. I'm not doing it properly yet. With the new boss coming, I can change people at any time, so don't do it either. Let me down. Li Shiniu wants to say something else. Zhang Xiaoxiao raised his hand to stop him. Since Li Tiu is like this, we won't embarrass you. We want to prepare 250 taels of silver. She has already budgeted for the price increase and other things. In fact, if she sells it to the people in the villages below, they can probably double the price in one trip. Earning 1 tael less will not result in much less profit. The only good news is that she brought out the 200 taels of silver notes when she went out, otherwise she wouldn't be able to take them out with bare hands even if she wanted to help. Chief Li glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao and said, "This little brother is very smart." "Who are you?" Li Shiniu said hurriedly, This is one of my brothers. Brother John came with us specially this time. He is a relative of ours. Okay, since you have money, it's easy to do things. Come. Take this note and go directly to hand over the money to receive the goods. Leader Li didn't make things difficult for them and gave them a guide to buy salt. Li Shania was grateful and came out with Zhang Xiaoxiao. I was so full of thanks that I couldn't express my gratitude. If Zhang Xiaoxiao hadn't been so kind and took out 200 taels of silver notes from her pocket today, they wouldn't have been able to transport the salt back today. The two of them arrived one after another to collect the salt. The place. After paying the money and the way, the other party moved the salt directly from the warehouse. The salt was put into cloth bags, and 18 people immediately stepped forward and carried each bag on their shoulders. A pound of coarse salt costs only 10 cents, and a pound of salt costs 1 tael of silver. 1 pound of salt is worth as much as 100 pounds of grain. Even when there was no war here, this price was still worth 20 kilograms of grain. Of course, this is the government price. There are dozens of various government taxes, and when they are added up layer by layer, they are indeed expensive. They get about 100 yuan per kilogram from the salt field, and the price when selling it to ordinary people is naturally not expensive. This is why private salt is very popular, and it is also the reason why they take risks. The government's crackdown on illegal salt sales is punishable by beating to death. They had 250 taels of silver to pack 2,500 kilograms of salt. Zhang Xiaoxiao saw a wheelbarrow pushed from nowhere. Each car could hold several hundred kilograms of salt, which was enough for 6 wheelbarrows. 6 people took turns pushing the cart, and the remaining people guarded the salt cart. In this way, the number of people will be reduced at once, and the speed will become very slow. Li Shaniu smiled and said, Mr. Zhang, these tools are stored in the salt field here. Use them every time and push them every time. Why haven't you thought about renting an ox cart or a horse-drawn carriage? Isn't it very fast? Zhang Xiaoxiao never thought that the efficiency would be so low. It's no wonder we encountered robberies. Given our traveling speed, it's no wonder we didn't encounter robberies. Li Shania glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao with an inexplicable expression. It's no wonder that this former official lady, how could she know the sufferings of the people in Ming Dynasty? Mr. Zhang, we are smuggled salt traders, and we cannot see the light of it. If we hire ox carts and horse-drawn carriages, the government will reward everyone with a large amount of silver to encourage everyone to report smuggled salt. Once someone reports, we will be punished by death. Zhang Xiaoxiao sighed, she still took it for granted. The people from the two villages met. Sure enough, the people from Linjia village were very generous and pushed a total of 12 wheelbarrows. It could be seen that the goods must be at least 500 taels of silver. Everyone once again started to turn around and head back. Zhang Xiaoxiao just took a look at the salt in the sack. The salt was completely different from the salt she saw. The salt was black, yellow, and had many impurities. Obviously it is due to the process, and the salt is slightly bitter and astringent in the mouth. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 922. Chapter 922, Great Victory. Brother Li, are all the salts on the market like this? There are 2 types of salt on the market. One is the private salt we sell now. The other is called snow salt, which is much better than the salt we eat. It doesn't have that bitterness. And the color is whiter and more transparent. Those snowflake salts are even more expensive, costing 10 taels of silver per pound, which only the rich and powerful can afford. Ordinary people like us can only eat this salt. Li Shania was surprised that Zhang Xiaoxiao actually asked about this. Is it difficult for Zhang Xiaoxiao not to be an official lady? Zhang Xiaoxin thought. In fact, making salt is not a complicated process. Snowflake silver is the refined salt she eats. After simple filtering and processing, the price rises sharply. With such a high profit, it is naturally profitable. It's really a hugely profitable industry. It really hurts me to see these people living their lives with their heads up. This is what happens in a country with a monarchy system, especially in troubled times. Let's all get on the road. The return journey was obviously not smooth. It showed that several passers-by with obvious intentions were following behind them, neither hurriedly nor too slowly, neither far nor near. When they reached the halfway point, they reached a dangerous place, and finally the bandits who surrounded them appeared. Everyone was instantly panicked. No, they haven't encountered bandits before. It's because everyone was looking forward to them along the way. Because of their expectations, they were a little panicked when they encountered them. Li Shaniu drew the machete from his back. Linda Wang also stepped up his deployment of manpower for defense. Zhang Xiaoxiao took his time and looked at the number of people on the other side. They are really a large group of people in darkness. This is an era where numbers can be used to win, and victory is purely based on numbers. The other party's total number of people before and after was 200. Everyone should know what to do, take action and don't panic. Zhang Xiaoxiao shouted, "It's this time." Obviously, the usual discipline training played a huge role, and people's hearts immediately gathered because of this sound. 1 2 3. As soon as Jiang's small voice fell, everyone quickly took out a piece of red cloth from their pockets and tied it directly on their arms. The person pushing the cart seemed to have heard some kind of order and quickly pushed the 18 carts together, forming a formation in the middle. Others ignored the cars, and 3 people formed a group and quickly dispersed around the cars, forming countless small groups. Brothers, money is a little tight recently. You can keep this salt. We won't hurt anyone. You must leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will let you stay here today. A bandit with a white face and black beard rode arrogantly on a horse, pointing his whip at everyone. There are actually more than a dozen horses in the bandit group at the head of these bandits. These horses are obviously the property of the bandits, and of course there are several large cars that can be seen in the distance. It seemed that they were also preparing to rob the vehicle they used to load the salt into the car and transport it away. Obviously they are well prepared and someone has already stepped on it. Li Shaniu glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao, who nodded. Don't even think about it. If you have the ability, come here. Otherwise, stop talking nonsense. Since grandpas dare to eat this bowl of rice, they don't take this life seriously. The white-faced and black-bearded bandits were happy. Okay, you have some backbone, okay, then Grandpa will take your life today. Today will be your Memorial Day next year. Brothers, please serve it to me. Let's take a look at what is popular and spicy. Here we go. I rush. He waved the big knife in his hand and pinched the horse's belly with his legs. Immediately, a dozen horses in front rushed over. More than 100 bandits behind him followed the horses and faced Li Shaniu directly. Linda Wang and others rushed over, holding in their hands of various weapons brandished. In their eyes, what these private salt dealers hold in their hands is just silver, just pure silver. The white-faced and black-bearded bandit rushed forward, and was suddenly struck by 3 red-tasseled spears stabbing the horse's belly. He immediately picked up his horse and jumped up. Riding on a horse has an advantage. Those of them who dare to ride a horse to rob will naturally have their own skills. Dodging the 3 red-tasseled guns in front of him, the machete slashed the barrel of a gun that was stabbing him. Laughing loudly. You dare to show off in front of Grandpa with such little effort, you should die. The next moment, 3 red-tasseled spears directly picked him off his horse. Right? With just a stick of incense, the killing sound was so loud that the surrounding bandits were simply frightened by the news. I saw that all the bandits on more than a dozen horses were killed directly. He didn't even have a cup of tea, so he just faced him back and forth, and was killed directly. The horse had become an ownerless horse. The other bandits were unable to avoid and could not escape when faced with the elusive red tassel gun. Can escape. Seeing the brother in front of him die in front of him and being stabbed through, the others were already frightened and turned around and ran away. Linda Wang and Li Taizu were a little overwhelmed by the killings and wanted to chase after them. Zhang Xiaoxiao stopped the two of them. Don't chase after poor enemies, be careful of traps. Although the two of them were a little regretful, they still obeyed the order and came back directly to clean up the battlefield. Of the more than 50 people in the two villages, only 15 were slightly injured and 3 were seriously injured, but not fatally. The 3 seriously injured people were accidentally injured because they forgot to cooperate with their teammates in panic. 15 minor injuries, basically no problem with a little bandage. After checking the casualties, Li Taizu and Linda Wang from the two villages were instantly happy. This was probably the smoothest trip they had ever had to sell smuggled salt. What does it mean to be injured? As long as no one is killed, it is a blessing. Every time you smuggle salt, you must not die a few people. A few deaths are minor. The death of a dozen people is nothing. This time, no one died. More than 200 bandits were driven away, especially Li Taizu, who was even more happy and had already brought all the horses and carts over. 2 horses were accidentally injured in their front legs by their red cherry guns, and it looked like they couldn't use them. The remaining 10 horses all need to be tailed. These are horses. There are not even cattle in their village, not to mention horses. There are also 12 very strong carts. Linda Wang was so greedy that he won a great victory. Not only did they not suffer any losses, they also snatched horses and carts from the bandits. What is this concept? They switched from one shot to another in an instant. Mr. Lin, we fought well in this battle. Otherwise, if we divide the horse and the cart, we can take the salt directly back to the village. It will be much easier than pushing the wheelbarrow. It is really eye-catching, these horses and cars. Of course, I am embarrassed to say that they are directly divided, but this is also reminding Zhang Xiaoxiao. This is the credit of the people of Linjiakan. Zhang Xiaoxiao nodded. Everyone quickly hitched the horses to the carts and transferred the salt. The remaining people took the wheelbarrows directly back to the salt field. Li Shenyu and the others arranged some people and left a dozen or so people to send the wheelbarrow back. The other people hitched the carriages and drove the salt back to the village. During the rest of the way, because everyone's morale was high, some small bone bandits looked at them. After seeing their condition, they didn't dare to come up. They have never seen anyone who dared to drive a carriage to sell smuggled salt. Generally, this kind of salt sales team has proven to have a strong background, so it is better not to offend them. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 923. Chapter 923 Snow Salt. The two villages drove the horse teams directly back to the threshing floor at the entrance of Ljia village. Zhang Xiaoxiao understood that Linda Wang followed him, probably out of embarrassment, but he opened his mouth to ask for credit. After all, this was a horse and carriage. Who wouldn't be greedy? Even after getting off the carriage, he didn't let Linda Wang and the others unload the goods. Originally, everyone's goods were there is no need to balance the money purchased by each family. Village Chief Lin, this time we all cooperated sincerely, and the results are very good. Since it is everyone's credit, then we will share one share of these horses and these carts. There are 10 horses and a total of 12 carts, so you can get half of each village. What do you think? Linda Wang was a little unhappy. This time, their village had the 38th person. Ljiakan only produced 18 people, almost half less than them. It seems a bit unfair that they can still share half of the credit. Without themselves, would it be possible for these people to defeat 200 bandits just by relying on the people from Ljiakan? Mr. Zhang, your allocation is not appropriate. Li Shiniu glared, Linda Wang, why is it inappropriate? Without Mr. Jiang's efforts, do you think you could defeat these 200 bandits? Mr. Jiang's efforts in training everyone allowed us to survive with only one life. Although half of the horses and carts were given to our village only took half of the half, and the other half belonged to Mr. Jiang. They have contributed their efforts and money, so why can't they get these benefits? Besides, the reason why your village was able to successfully transport salt back this time was also thanks to Mr. Jiang. Before we left, we made it clear that 10% of the profit from this salt trip would be given to Mr. Jiang. Li Shiniu is truly grateful to Zhang Xiaoxiao. People can help them a lot. The absence of dead people is strength. When Linda Wang heard this, he realized that this reason was strong enough. If he really said that, he still felt a little guilty. Every time their village went to sell salt, even if they relied on the strength of their numbers, people would still die. This time the labor force produced in the village was only 1/3 of that in the village, not even half of what it was in the past. To be able to get such a huge income without anyone dying, we should really thank Mr. Zhang. He didn't even mention the credit, and when he divided the horse and cart, he only mentioned their 2 villages. This seemed a bit narrow-minded. He laughed loudly and said, Mr. Zhang, please don't look outside. I am just a rough person with a single brain. This matter has really ignored you. Let's divide these horses and carts into 3 parts, and Mr. Zhang will have one for our Linjiakan and one for Ljiakan. In any case, Mr. Zhang is responsible for this matter. We people in Linjia village are not the kind of ungrateful people. This is a very generous statement. Zhang Xiaoxiao responded with a smile. Although she didn't mention what she wanted in this matter, it would be too fake if she didn't ask for anything or ask for nothing. At first she also sincerely wanted to help Li Shiniu. Li Shiniu brother and sister are indeed good people, and now Linda Wang is also included, they are also good people. Since they are serious, she will naturally not refuse. 200 taels of silver were obviously not the capital that Zhang Xiaoxiao could use to establish himself in these troubled times. When is money or silver necessary for survival? Of course she is not worried about not surviving. I just feel that there is still a long way to go and we can't just look at the present. Everyone divided the things, and Linda Wang took the people of Linjia village to express their gratitude and then drove the carriage back to the village. Of course, Li Shiniu was also very kind and sent the young and middle-aged people in the village to help them transport the salt back with their own carriages. Otherwise, Linda Wang had a lot of salt, and their few carriages alone would not be enough. When the people in the village saw so much salt, they all smiled instantly. These salts are sold in exchange for nothing but silver. With the silver paid in taxes, the people in the village can survive. At least you don't have to worry about the young and old in the family catching the young. Zhang Xiaoxiao took Li Shiniu and sat down in the courtyard. How are you going to sell this salt? Li Shiniu rubbed his head. In the past few years, we will pack them separately and sell them all the way through the village. In previous years, dozens of villages in the surrounding are not enough for them. Especially if they take the salt directly down the road, there is even more salt shortage in Fukan over there, of course, if they are bolder. Let's exchange with the herdsmen on the grasslands. They are even more short of salt. Both humans and horses need salt. Once the salt reaches the other side, the price will rise again. But the rest of the things are easy to handle, and they are nothing compared to the way back. Isn't there any risk in going through this process? Zhang Xiaoxiao definitely didn't believe it. There is definitely a risk. The government is very strict in investigating and you will be beheaded if you are caught. Fortunately, the officers and soldiers are greedy for money. As long as they have some money, they can bribe them, otherwise they will have to die. Compared with bandits, officers and soldiers are not easy to deal with. Li Shinyu sighed, we are not as good as those big salt merchants, so naturally we have to work harder. What will happen if these salts are sold to the rich households in Yanmen Pass, or sold to the mainland? They should be able to fetch a good price. Li Shinyu smiled bitterly, Mr. Zhang, rich households are unwilling to ask for our salt. We have no way to get snowflake salt. This is good enough. We are satisfied. Zhang Xiaoxiao shook his head, we'll talk about it when you come tomorrow morning. Call Li Taihua over. The little girl is very willing to do things with Zhang Xiaoxiao. Li Shinyu rubbed his head and left in confusion. No words all night. The next day, Li Shinyu came on time. I saw my sister Li Taihua yawning and bringing out a box. Zhang Xiaoxiao came out and said, Shinyu, take a look. Li Shinyu glanced at the box, then paused, hurriedly rubbed his eyes, and came closer in disbelief. This is snowflake salt. White as snow, delicate and soft white, it looks like white snowflakes. Yes. I have taught Taihua how to purify snow salt. As long as you work harder, process the rest in advance and transport it to Fukan, you should be able to buy it at a good price. 10 taels of silver per caddy, how could you not make this money? Li Shinyu knelt down and pulled his sister, and Li Taihua also knelt down. Mr. Zhang, 70% of these profits belong to you. Thank you Mr. Zhang for giving us a way to make a fortune. Yesterday he went back and discussed with the clan elders that this time they only had 50 taels. Even if they could earn 50 taels from selling, that would be luck. But there are more than 120 people in the village and the tax would probably cost more than 100 taels. 2 silver coins. Still not enough. The family fortune has been emptied. If it were sold as snowflake salt now, the price would have increased tenfold. 52 seconds becomes 500 taels. This is all Mr. Jiang's skill. Shinyu, Taihua, hurry up. I will share half of the profit, and the rest will go to the villagers of Jiakan. But you must remember that when you go out to sell salt, you must not leak your own details or Jiakan, otherwise you will get into trouble. She doesn't want to do bad things with good intentions, causing death to the villagers. Li Shinyu nodded hurriedly. The clan elder was right. They would definitely live a good life after following Zhang Xiaoxiao. The important thing is that their friendship is different from other people's. The most important thing now is not to chill Mr. Jiang's heart. They will do whatever Mr. Zhang says. Just be obedient and work hard. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 924. Chapter 924. Something strange. Linda Wang has already arranged manpower to quickly arrange for the salt to be sold one day earlier and people will get the money one day earlier. This time they brought back 4,000 kilograms of salt, enough to make a fortune. The villagers of Linjia village are happy, no one has to worry this time. On the day Linda Wang came back, he summoned several elders from his own clan in the village and everyone discussed a plan. They want to send people out early and release their people before Jiazhuang and Jiakan. Otherwise there are only a few neighboring villages, and if you buy Jia village, you won't buy their Linjia village. They either have to go farther away, or they have to exchange money with the herdsmen on the grassland. No one wants to go too far. The road is long, and if something happens, it is difficult to prevent it. Fortunately, they have a lot of people and enough people. There are only a dozen strong men in Jiakan now, so what's the use? Even if they were all scattered, there wouldn't be as many people as they did. As soon as the people in Linjia village heard this plan, everyone nodded and hurriedly sent people to carry their salt and set off. Linda Wang worked hard for a month and finally sold out the salt. Brother De Wang, why do I feel something is not right recently? No one in Ljia village has seen them carrying salt and selling it outside. Logically speaking, even if all our people are spread out, there must be a few of them who are familiar with each other. There are frequent visits to the village, so they will definitely send it there. But who would have thought that we haven't met anyone from Linjia village in the past month? Several people under Linda Wang came over to report, mainly because they felt strange in their hearts. Everyone originally thought that if they encountered each other, they would have to pass the blame to each other to show that the responsibility was not theirs. No matter what, everyone has fought together. After the battle, this feeling is still there. I am always embarrassed to steal other people's business without even saying hello. Whoever wants to prepare a lot of words will not use them. The problem is that Ljiakan also has to pay taxes, and it looks like tax collectors from the government will come to visit them in a few days. If Yan Yinzi is not prepared now, it is possible that the people in Ljia village are really planning to let other villagers be captured. This is unlikely, so everyone feels strange. What makes me even more uneasy is that I am afraid that Ljiakan is causing trouble behind my back. Linda Wang was shocked. It's not Ljiakan. What's behind it? That Mr. Zhang is a smart man at first glance, and he is very methodical and strategic in doing things. Such a young master arrived at Ljia village first. I heard that he saved the people of Ljia village, so the villagers of Ljia village kept Mr. Zhang in their village in order to repay their kindness. In fact, he was very upset in his heart as to why they didn't meet Mr. Zhang first. If they meet young Master Zhang first, they need people and money in the village, and with Mr. Jiang's help, maybe they can really make great achievements. A good man has his ambitions in all directions, not to mention that these are troubled times. Of course men like them know that in troubled times, if they want to live a stable life, it depends not on one person, but on a village. Linda Wang naturally hopes to make their village more prosperous and prosperous. If the village has a prosperous population and is not afraid of bandits and officers and soldiers causing trouble, everyone's life will naturally be easier. Be able to live well in this chaotic world. Protect your family and protect yourself. Linda Wang was quite envious of those big salt merchants, who had the most salt merchants and even raised tens of thousands of horses. That is the strength of the army and the prosperity of natural life. Even the imperial court will look at him with admiration, and officials will protect him, so why worry about not being able to protect his people? He also hopes that these private gangs can become bigger and stronger, and at least they will not be bullied by others. Those bandits, officers, and soldiers dare to go to their villages to cause trouble, just because they are easy to bully. I didn't see Zayajiapu in the distance. Why didn't the officers and soldiers go there to collect heavy taxes? You can't afford to offend people with strong soldiers and horses, and bandits never dare to come to your door. This is strength. In this day and age, whoever has the bigger fist naturally has the final say. Linda Wang led people to Ljiakan. However, I saw that Ljia village was peaceful, with villagers chatting leisurely in the village, and children playing happily in the fields. There is no sorrow at all. Linda Wang was even more vigilant. He met Li Shiniu and his men driving a carriage back head-on. The two of them met each other. Li Shiniu jumped out of the car in a hurry. Throwing the whip in his hand to another young man in the car, "Dehua, drive the car back and go find Mr. Zhang to do an errand. I'll be back in a moment." He smiled and said, "Brother Lin, what brought you here? Come on, come and sit in my room." He took Linda Wang and left with a warm and kind attitude. Linda Wang felt a little relieved. Li Shiniu was a pretty good person. He was not a cunning person. He was just and generous. Otherwise, he would not have thought of merging Ljia village into his Linjia village. Generally, those cunning people would not want to win over, lest they win over and cause trouble for themselves. "Dad Li, Brother Shiniu, I'm so ashamed. I don't have the face to see you. How did I know that the people below actually robbed the business of the villages where you often go to deliver salt? I'm not here to talk to you. Apologize. Linda Wang was bowing and clasping his fists, and what he did in the scene was indeed unreasonable. Li Shenyu said with a smile, Brother Lin, we have already robbed, so what little business is there? Anyway, we smugglers of salt are not bright in the east but bright in the west, and our village did not sell salt to them this year. We will definitely not be able to take care of it in the short term. If we don't sell salt to them, they will have to buy high-priced salt. It's not just right if you sell it to them. Anyway, our two villages are considered brothers, and it doesn't matter who hands the business. The good news does not fall into outsiders' fields, brother, I don't care at all. Linda Wang looked at Li Shenyu. There was really no sign of anger on his face. It seemed that he was actually telling the truth. Shenyu, we are brothers, right? This question was asked without any clue. Li Shenyu looked at Linda Wang. Of course we are brothers no matter what we do, we are going through life and death. We villagers in Linjia village and Ljia village are all brothers. Linda Wang smiled and said, oh, after hearing what you said, I also feel that our friendship was not in vain. Since we are brothers and you have a good deal, why don't you take care of your elder brother? This is not right. There is a good deal that makes money. We should still cooperate sincerely. It is not unity that Mr. Zhang said is strength. Brother, you have a good business, and you leave your eldest brother to earn a lot of money. This is a bit sorry for your eldest brother, and makes your eldest brother still anxious here, thinking that he has robbed your business. Li Shenyu shook his head suddenly, Brother Lin, you are kidding. How can we have any good business? We are not all doing the same business of licking blood. You sell private salt, and I also sell private salt. We transport the salt back together, it's not like you haven't seen any good deals I can make. He will never admit that the business they are doing now is a very profitable business. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 925. Chapter 925 Making a Fortune. Linda Wang felt anxious, scratching his heart and lungs. How could he not see that Li Shenyu was calm and relaxed now, not looking anxious at all? There must be a market for their salt, and it must be selling well. Otherwise, how can it be as stable as Mount Tai? Who is not anxious to prepare money to pay taxes now? The more Li Shenyu behaves like this, the more he is scratching his head and wants to know what kind of business Li Shenyu and the others are doing now. Li Shenyu was shaking his head like a drum, and he couldn't admit it even if he was beaten to death. How could you tell Linda Wang about this kind of business? Linda Wang is different from him. Although he is a loyal and righteous person, it is not impossible to see that Linda Wang is different from them. This person has many small thoughts, and of course he is smarter than himself. Once Linda Wang knew about this, he would definitely pester Mr. Zhang to get a piece of the pie. Linda Wang is not as practical as Li Shenyu, and there may be many troubles in the future. Li Shenyu cannot cause trouble to young Master Zhang. He is the only one who knows that Zhang Xiaoxiao is a woman. If Linda Wang finds out that Mr. Zhang is a woman, he will definitely not be convinced by Linda Wang. This man is very ambitious and there is no telling what he will do. Even though Linda Wang tried to keep his mouth shut, he still didn't get the news he wanted. Instead, Li Shenyu used a lot of tricks to fend him off. The two of them chatted happily for a long time, but they couldn't get any useful information from Li Shenyu. Linda Wang sent people to follow Li Shenyu and the others secretly when he returned. He didn't believe what Li Shenyu and the others were up to. As long as they were willing to investigate, they could still find out the clues. 3 days later the men he sent came back. They also brought him some exciting news. They followed Li Shenyu's car to Fukan. Li Shenyu went to Fukan to drive a carriage to deliver goods to people. There were 5 people delivering the goods along the way, and they seemed very serious. Heavily guarded. It should be salt, because it was packed in sacks, and they didn't take salt seriously at first. They have it too. The family details of those who came back together are unknown. However, they still had an extra thought, mainly because they felt that the salt was given to the big families in the city. It is said that the Wu family is the most famous wealthy family in Yanmenguan. Could this Wu family be the kind of people who take advantage of their private life? Can you actually give salt to the Wu family? And it seems that the steward of the Wu family took the salt in carefully and asked the servants to be careful when carrying it. So expensive? Although the Wu family is not a salt merchant, the Wu family has many channels. It is said that the Wu family does business with these tribes in the grassland, and the Wu family's business is very large. The people who followed were also smart, capable, and smart kids. While people were not paying attention, he poked a hole in the sack and took out a handful of salt. Hand this handful of salt in your hand. The child was so excited that he almost fainted. Linda Wang didn't know what the child was excited about. He watched the child tremblingly as he took out a handful of things from his pocket and placed them on the table. He was dumbfounded when he saw it. It turns out to be snowflake salt. Oh my god. Li Shiniu, awesome. You can actually get snowflake salt. Wrong. The salt field he went to with Li Shiniu. They are from the same salt farm. Although the salt managers in this salt farm are different, this salt farm does not produce snowflake salt. This private salt farm produces black salt for the common people to eat. This kind of salt is bitter and astringent, but now I took a pinch of the snowflake salt in front of me and gently put it in my mouth to take a sip. It has a sweet aftertaste and no bitterness at all. This salt is definitely the kind of snowflake salt sold in Fukan. Although he has never tasted it, he can tell by looking at the color, quality, and taste that it is definitely not on the same level as the private salt they sell. See this scene. Linda Wang immediately understood why Li Shiniu and his family were quiet in Jia village, and everyone lived peacefully, without any effort. If they sell snowflake salt, they sell it directly to wealthy households, such as the Wu family. As far as the salt that the Wu family needs, they naturally need these snowflake salts to open up the joints of those wealthy households. This snowflake salt is not available everywhere. There are not many snowflake salts circulating in the market. I have never heard of a pound of snowflake salt costing 10 taels of silver. The value of snowflake salt has surpassed the value of snowflake silver. He still hasn't figured out where he got the salt. This time, he put the salt in a small cloth bag, took it with him in his pocket, and drove the carriage till Jiazhuang. Li Shiniu is currently in Zhang Xiaoxiao's room excitedly giving an account to Zhang Xiaoxiao. The snowflake salt they made has now been sold out. After all, when you can sell it to big households in the city at once, why sell it piecemeal to individuals as before? Not only does it take a lot of risks, but whether you can receive the money is still one thing. Having never done business has been so fun. The salt is delivered to others in one go, and the money is paid to them in one go. Li Shiniu's hands were trembling a little when he held the banknotes. Have never seen so much silver. They brought back a total of 2,500 kilograms of salt. After these 2,500 kilograms of salt were filtered and screened, another 300 kilograms of salt were consumed inside and outside, but there were still 2,200 kilograms of salt left. These snowflake salts are worth more than 20,000 taels of silver. He has never seen so much silver in his life. He put all these banknotes in front of Zhang Xiaoxiao without losing a penny. He didn't think there should be any small thoughts at all. These were all the money that was exchanged for Zhang Xiaoxiao's merit. Otherwise, based on their ability. Now being able to earn back 100 taels of silver is already considered a skill. Li Shiniu felt that he must firm up his belief, follow Miss Zhang, and listen to Miss Jiang's words. Miss Zhang is a capable person. Did you see that she immediately made more than 20,000 taels of silver as soon as she changed her hands? It is totally different from theirs, and Miss Zhang is generous and forthright. He didn't hear what Miss Zhang told him clearly last time. He earned half as much money as the villagers in Jia village. Girl Zhang is worthy of them, so naturally they should do their part. This amount of money is enough to pay the taxes of the whole village, even if more people pay the taxes. This year not only can the silver be used to offset taxes, but the grain they receive and the taxes they pay can also be offset with silver. In that case, they would have a lot of food left to eat. This year, people in the village can have enough to eat and drink, and live a prosperous new year. The only thing ordinary people like them care about is to keep their families fed, clothed, and live a stable life. They don't worry about anything else. He has never cared about who will be the emperor or who will rule the world. As long as everyone can live a good life, it doesn't matter to him who is the emperor. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 926. Chapter 926, Door to Door. Zhang Xiaoxiao went to Fukan in recent days and bought a lot of books, including historical books about this dynasty and various books. Of course, I also heard a lot of various news in the tea house and study room. To sum up, it is really not easy to live a stable life here. The people here are living in dire straits. She now wants to go directly to Fukan number 1 from here, but her road guide doesn't work. In the past few days, after listening to the news for a long time, I found out that in the letter left by the original owner, it was really difficult for her to impersonate the identity of this young lady, because this young lady's family had been confiscated and her family had been exterminated. To put it bluntly, since she is a traitor, if Zhang Xiaoxiao shows up in place of Miss Zhang Suimei, I am afraid that she will be immediately arrested as a criminal and used as an official slave. In this day and age, it is difficult for you to move without a guide. Zhang Xiaoxiao was a little discouraged. No 10 is hidden so deep that it's not easy for her to find it. It's really not that easy to find number 10 quietly, and now it's even harder to leave this small place. Since we can't leave, we have to put down roots here and live here first. But as an ordinary person, it is not easy now. I have never heard that the villagers in this village are not only suffering from the scourge of taxes from officers and soldiers, but also the scourge of bandits, plus various robberies and scourges of foreign tribes. She wants to live here. I really need to think of something. Become bigger and stronger and become the overlord of one party. Maybe it will be easier to find out the news about number 10. Zhang Xiaoxiao was worried. She really didn't want to be the overlord and dominate the world. We are a modern young woman with ideals and pursuits. What is this? The banknote is divided into 3 parts. One copy was given to Li Shiniu. Li Shiniu looked at it, his eyes full of doubts, but he didn't ask. What kind of trust is this? Zhang Xiaoxiao was a little embarrassed. She had the complete trust of others, but unfortunately she was still doing it for the mission. Originally, it was agreed that our family would share half of the silver, but I thought that once the autumn harvest begins, foreigners will definitely try their best to come over to grab the grain, and the bandits will also start coveting it. Compared with the surrounding villages, our village is the weakest, and the persimmons are weak. In this case, the silver was divided into 3. The villagers get a share to improve the lives of their families and repair their houses, and I get another share. Our 2 families will combine the remaining money and use it to build some walls around the village as fortifications. In this way, we can resist on the spot once there are invasions and harassments by bandits and foreigners. It's better to avoid being plundered by these bandits and foreigners every year. But we don't have enough manpower. Li Shiniu actually knew that once the city wall was built, their place would be like a garrison for the officers and soldiers. It is much safer and easier to defend. It is better than now when the village is open and people can rush in and rob it at will. You can advance, attack, retreat or defend. But there are many young and old in the village, and not many young and middle-aged people really want to do this kind of physical work. Without young adults to step up, you can't do it. I thought about it. I saw a lot of displaced people in the market of Yanmenguinfukan. Our village has a small population. We should bring those people to our village. On the one hand, we can provide them with food and accommodation, and on the other hand, they did the work for us, first helping us build the city wall. It not only solves their food and clothing problem, but also allows them to help us solve the problem of repairing the city wall. This is not two birds with one stone. Lishania was overjoyed. Good idea. Zayajiabayo built a city wall to protect their village, but in their minds, those walls cost a lot of money, and they couldn't build them casually. But now that Zhang Xiaoxiao said it, Lishania suddenly felt that their village had suddenly become taller. As soon as he said it, Lishania was ready to find someone. There are many people homeless in Yanmen Pass due to the war. Nearly all of them sold their sons and daughters. The government doesn't care, these people's survival really depends on luck. Now I don't know how many people are willing to take care of a meal. Don't worry, the autumn harvest is coming these days, and the price of food has also come down. We need to stock up on more food, and we will save money to buy food when the time comes. Zhang Xiaoxiao considered that her food could be used in disguised form. Subsidize these refugees. Looking at the refugees in Yanmen Pass who were dressed in rags and scrawny, dragging their families with them, putting straw tags on them, waiting to be sold. Zhang Xiaoxiao could not remain indifferent. The government is corrupt, the country is in decline, and the people here are living a life worse than death. It may become a luxury to have enough to live on. Zhang Xiaoxiao really couldn't stand by and watch. Can't leave now anyway. Then just do what you can. Change the fate of some people. Li Shanyu touched his head and smiled honestly. Young Master Zhang is still great. Now is indeed the best time to hoard food. Instead of taking advantage of those food dealers and squeezing us, we should keep it to eat. At this moment, Linda Wang came in with someone. Linda Wang found out early in the morning that Li Shanyu and Mr. Zhang were discussing something. There was no one to report the news. In fact, Linda Wang was quick on his feet and barged in directly. Li Shanyu, Mr. Zhang. Brother Lin, what are you doing? If you have anything to do, let's go out and talk. Don't disturb Mr. Jiang's rest. Li Shanyu was a little unhappy. They have always respected Zhang Xiaoxiao here, and the villagers in the village respect Zhang Xiaoxiao. Normally no one bothers Zhang Xiaoxiao. Linda Wang glanced at Zhang Xiaoxiao. Master Zhang, Li Shanyu, you have such a good business and you are going behind my back, Linda Wang. After all, we are brothers who have lived together through life and death. Isn't it a bit unfair to do this? Linda Wang found a chair and sat down on his own. It was obvious that he would not leave. Li Shanyu was anxious. Zhang Xiaoxiao waved his hand. Linda Wang was different from Li Shanyu. This person probably knew about Li Shanyu selling snowflake salt. Money and silk move people's hearts. This is urgent. Brother Lin, what do you mean? You can make it more clear. Zhang Xiaoxiao patted Li Shanyu on the shoulder and sat down as well. Li Shanyu felt those few blows on his shoulder and suddenly felt at ease. What can Linda Wang do? With Li Shanyu here, how can he still bully young Master Zhang? Also sat down steadily. Yes, Brother Lin, please explain clearly. Why are we not being honest? Linda Wang glanced at Li Shanyu in surprise. Li Shanyu was so frightened by what he had been saying just now that he was like a guilty-minded thief. Mr. Zhang stabilized Li Shanyu in just one move. It seems that Mr. Zhang is more powerful than he thought. Li Shanyu, what happened to the snowflake salt? Don't deny it. My people saw you delivering salt to the Wu family in Yanmenguinfu City, and what you delivered was snowflake salt. How can you be the only one in such a good business? If there is money, we should all make it together. Zhang Xiaoxiao laughed. Brother Lin, don't you blush when you say this. Linda Wang's face was really burning. Why is it not red? With each company selling salt separately. Each company has different capital, so how can they do it together? Wouldn't that mean losing money? End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 927. Chapter 927 Refugees. Young Master Zhang, Li Shiniu, people in the know don't tell secrets. It was my Linda Wang's fault that I, Linda Wang, had poor discernment in the past, but the villagers of Linjia village were right. Let's not talk about the past. I only hope that young Master Zhang and Li Shiniu will be better in the future. You can also do business with us. Let everyone earn money together. Mr. Zhang, I know you are very capable. We are just ordinary people, so I beg you to give us some guidance. From now on, our two villages will help each other and become true brothers. Earn money together when there is money, and bear it together when there are difficulties. Linda Wang was simply happy. Pour it out in a flash. On the contrary, Li Shiniu was speechless. Just now, I saw Linda Wang looking like he was raising an army to accuse him, but immediately he became groveling. It's a very powerful method. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Linda Wang with interest. This Linda Wang was quite a talent. Completely different from Li Shiniu. When such a person uses it well, it is like a knife, and it doesn't matter who the blade is pointed at. They are still very weak now, and it is better to do less than to do more. Certainly. Zhang Xiaoxiao was thinking further. If a large group of bandits or foreigners really plundered, Li Shiniu and the others would not be invincible alone. 18 people are still too thin. I have never heard of a village being massacred by hundreds of bandits. Survival does not depend on fighting alone. It is a good thing that Linda Wang is willing to tie them up with a rope. Brother Lin, you can give me advice. Giving advice means you have to listen to me. I wonder if Brother Lin thinks it's possible? If you don't listen to my instructions, you won't make any money, and you might even be killed. This is not a lie. It's not that Zhang Xiaoxiao can't help. I just don't know if Linda Wang can listen. No one can earn all the money at once. Linda Wang became more energetic when he heard this. Since Mr. Zhang agreed, it would be easy to handle. Young Master Zhang, don't worry, we in Linjia village will listen to you, we will do whatever Mr. Zhang says. He just thought about the white snowflakes and salt. For the sake of money, it was nothing to make him obedient. Even if he is asked to call Mr. Zhang his ancestor, there will be no problem. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled and said, Brother Lin, you don't want to sell any salt you still have. Linda Wang is stupid and won't sell it. Mr. Zhang, we still have 2,000 kilograms of private salt. You also know that the last time we brought back a lot of private salt, we have sold more than 2,000 kilograms in the past few days since we came back. The remaining 2,000 kilograms are not for sale. This thing is like a firecracker. It's not safe to leave it at home. If one person is not good enough, if someone reports on it, the whole village will lose their heads. Even if they don't report on it, they will have to pay taxes immediately. You really can't put the salt away. Linda Wang was so anxious that he got angry. Who can rush to put this private salt at home without fear of losing their head? Li Shiniu, take 2 people and teach them how to make snowflake salt, and then send them to the Wu family in exchange for silver to build the city wall like us. Li Shiniu happily agreed, not at all upset because of Zhang Xiaoxiao's words. Okay, Brother Lin, let's go. Linda Wang asked innocently, can you make snowflake salt? Who are you lying to? If someone in Jiakan could make snowflake salt, could Jiakan have declined to the extent it is today? Li Shiniu pulled him and left, You follow me and find 2 smart, patient, and meticulous boys. I will teach you how to make snowflake salt. This snowflake salt was the idea of Mr. Zhang. It is said to be recorded in ancient books. We people can't read a single Chinese character. It's strange that we have to know it. People say that scholars are great. Now I know that Mr. Zhang is very good at reading. It's really easy to make some money casually. From now on, if you follow Mr. Zhang, you will have a good life for everyone. You are right to listen to Mr. Zhang. Linda Wang felt dizzy, and his mind felt like thunder. Mr. Zhang is so awesome. One day later, Linda Wang clapped his thigh excitedly when he saw the white snowflake salt really coming out of his hands, like frost and snow, as white as jade. Mr. Zhang, a man of God. Zhang Xiaoxiao specifically told Linda Wang not to reveal his identity when delivering salt. Linda Wang agreed wholeheartedly. 2,000 kilograms of private salt turned into 1,800 kilograms of snowflake salt. This was partly because their people did not believe that they could pour a tank of salt water, otherwise there would be more. But it's exciting enough now. 12 taels of silver per pound, just counting it makes people crazy. Linda Wang and Li Shiniu delivered salt, and Zhang Xiaoxiao followed them to Fukan and Dongxi. There is now the base camp for refugees, surrounded by the dilapidated city god temple, and all the refugees are in ragged clothes. Zhang Xiaoxiao was accompanied by 5 boys from his Ljia village, all of whom were strong young men in their 17s and 18s. As soon as they said they needed someone to work and take care of the food, they were immediately surrounded by people. They all stretched out their hands and wanted to follow Zhang Xiaoxiao right away. Zhang Xiaoxiao still picked some people. Among the refugees, there were also some oily people who were not diligent in their limbs and could not distinguish between grains and grains. There were also grown men who wanted to cheat and eat ready-made food. Zhang Xiaoxiao picked those who were dragging their families. The family members who brought them out were taken back. Such people will also work well for their families. 80 households were selected at once, with a total of 400 people. As soon as he said he would follow Zhang Xiaoxiao, no one hesitated. They are not worried about being cheated. Even if they are cheated, what else can be done to them? People are starving to death. If they can be tricked into giving them food, they will admit it. Zhang Xiaoxiao really didn't want to pick people like cattle, but unfortunately others didn't have this idea. They were looking for people to go back to work, not to take them back to be their grandfathers. The other 5 people were picking and picking. There were also families selling children and women in their village. They had not learned how to pick people, nor had they seen how to buy people. It is still possible to imitate cats and imitate tigers. Zhang Xiaoxiao and the others took people back. The carriage was pulling salt. Even if someone on the road looked like they were about to faint, Zhang Xiaoxiao still had a hard heart and refused to let them get on the carriage. Horses and carriages cannot solve the problem. Back to the village, someone had already driven the carriage back in advance. Several aunts in the village have already cooked rice porridge, which is neither thin nor thick. Several large pots are set up on the threshing floor. Those who arrive are taken to take a hot bath first. After a bowl of hot porridge was eaten, everyone immediately held the bowl and cried, wishing to kneel down and kowtow to the whole village. But to make it clear, 1 bowl per person and half a bowl for the child. The aunt who served the porridge made it clear that it was not that they were not allowed to eat, but that they had been hungry for so long and could not eat too much. In fact, all the ants feel distressed. This grain is new grain that Li Shiniu collected from other villages. They didn't dare to eat like this, so now they feed it to these refugees, but they all look pitiful. They didn't say anything. Their family had also experienced such a famine. Escape is not the same thing. That night, the refugees settled into unoccupied houses in the village one by one. There is definitely no bedding. If you have something to bring with you, just make do with it. It's not yet winter yet, so people won't be freezing. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 928. Chapter 928 Building a Wall. Li Shiniu came back that night. Linda Wang saw no one. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Li Shiniu, who had a dark face. What's going on? Did Linda Wang leave you alone and leave? Li Shiniu scratched his neck and became angry. This Linda Wang, not only did he leave me behind, he also took it upon himself to find Mr. Wu alone. He said that he was Linda Wang from Linjia village, and then kicked me away. Mr. Zhang, this Linda Wang may have something wrong. He probably thinks they learned how to make snowflake salt, so they won't have to worry about sales if they become a noble person. I think he wants to break up the gang, but today he didn't even pay attention to me. I can only come back alone. Li Shiniu became arrogant when he thought of Linda Wang's virtues. This was completely different from the way he behaved when he learned how to make snowflake salt with him a few days ago. It is really a dog. Zhang Xiaoxiao smiled slightly. Since Linda Wang wants to go it alone, let him and we do our thing. Recently, we need to urge people to repair the city wall as soon as possible. We don't want to make it strong and durable, but just build it. Li Shiniu hates the fact that iron cannot become steel. Ms. Zhang is so kind-hearted, how could she ignore Linda Wang? Linda Wang is an ungrateful bastard. The project in Jiakan is progressing very quickly. Li Shiniu built the city wall based on Zhang Gong's suggestion and followed the progress of ancient concrete and cement walls. Of course it is actually very simple and easy. The yellow soil here is mixed with glutinous rice flour, plus glutinous rice water, and some sand to form a simple version of cement. Although this kind of cement wall is not as hard as modern cement walls, it is quite strong. Li Shiniu personally supervised the work. Of course, the strong men in the village did not have time to build the city wall. The main reason was that the strong men in the village still had their work to do. The grain in the fields was about to be harvested, so they had to be busy with the work in the fields. Their plan is to be prepared with both hands. Of course, the villagers' autumn harvesting work is proceeding steadily. The 18 strong men in the village have not missed 2 hours of training every day even though they are harvesting autumn. For them, no wind or rain can stop their enthusiasm for training. They know that although these training methods may seem simple and harsh, for them, they are life-saving skills. Zhang Xiaoxiao taught them not only various battle techniques, but also various cooperative formations. These are also the various methods Zhang Xiaoxiao learned in the training room of the end of the world. They have no problem dealing with monsters, let alone ordinary people. What they are doing now is a clever trick for everyone to cooperate. The 400 people who built the city wall were actually building the city wall very quickly. Because these people had 3 meals a day, they had enough to eat. From the thick porridge for the first 3 days, they have now begun to eat dry rice. They even have one dish with meat every day, which is called a meat dish. Everyone was satisfied and grateful after eating the oily meat dishes. These meat dishes benefit from the young people in the village who go hunting in the mountains from time to time and catch some prey. They improve everyone's lives, but they have to eat meat for training anyway. The villagers also need to eat meat to improve their lives, and these refugees eat meat along with them. These people benefited from the nourishment of these good meals, and the bodies of these 400 people became stronger day by day. They were grateful to the people in Jia village for being so kind to them. These people are working hard, fearing that they will be kicked out if they are not active. You must know that now you and your family can have enough to eat and drink, and there is also meat to eat, and a house to protect you from the wind and rain. Compared with their wandering outside, this kind of life is simply a happy time to catch up with immortals. They don't know how the immortals in the sky live. They just know that even if they had eaten all the tree roots and turf before, they still couldn't fill their stomachs. Looking at family members becoming emaciated one by one, some even died in front of one's eyes. They even had to sell their children, daughters, and even wives just for a bite of food. The current life is extremely happy for them. Everyone worked hard, for fear that the people in the village would dislike them. Of course, the people who took the lead in working hard also had small thoughts in their hearts. They were eager to work well and strive to make the people of Lgia village like them. They saw that there were many vacant houses in Lgia village, and the life of the villagers in Lgia village was also quite good. If they could stay here and become people of Lgia village, wouldn't they not have to go out to be exposed to the wind and sun in the future? Do you want to beg for food? Wouldn't this get more than what they would get by building a city wall? There are not a few people who have this idea. After all, this is dozens of households, and the heads of each household have already made up their minds. Even the elders and children of the family have discussed one purpose, which is to perform well and finish the work, and discuss with the leader, Mr. Zhang, to allow them to stay in Ljiakan. That's considered living a good life. There are not a few people who have this kind of mentality. So it took less than half a month to surround them, and an earth wall about 5 meters high had been built around the village. Of course, the reason why the speed is so fast is because Zhang Xiaoxio's requirements are not precise, and he simply follows the rough production method. Instead of making adobe, a lot of stones were mixed into the sand and yellow mud, and local materials were used. In this way, a simple concrete was formed and placed directly on top. This kind of wall is quite easy. There is a 2-meter wide platform on top of the 5-meter high earthen wall. The earthen wall is like the city wall on the other side of Fukan. It also has crenellations and observation openings, so that if someone attacks, you can attack directly from the top. Of course, they don't have weapons like bows and arrows like the officers and soldiers. Even if they are above, if there are crenels, I'm afraid the means of attack will be limited. They were able to build so quickly mainly because the terrain of Lgia village was very good. Behind their village was a big mountain, and in front was a dirt road, so as long as they built in front of the village and around the mountain, the city wall is actually equivalent to surrounding the village. Save a lot of effort. There is a strong gate in front. As long as the gate is closed, a closed fortress will be formed in the village. If the gate is open, it is not a problem to get in and out of ox carts and carriages, and people's daily life will not be affected. In order to be more stable, the gate they made is quite strong. Just for this wooden gate, dozens of trees were cut down from the mountain. It took several carpenters to work day and night for 10 days to build this strong wooden door. In particular, the outside of this wooden door was painted with fire-resistant paint. This was the unique wisdom of the ancients. Fire-resistant paint had long been available in this era. Seeing that the city wall had been built, the 80 families were a little anxious. Seeing that the work was done, if they were not left behind, they would soon be displaced again, so representatives of each family came directly to Mr. Zhang and Li Shiniu. Li Shiniu has now risen to the occasion. With the recommendation of the clan elders, he has now become the village chief of Lgia village, and he is also the youngest village chief. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lucky Bag is Reborn with Space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 929. Chapter 929 Settlement. Li Shiniu and Zhang Xiaoxiao also discussed it. The two of them had been observing these 400 people these days, and found that these 80 households were really well selected. Every family is a diligent, loyal, and honest family. Especially, he is proactive and motivated in his work. He does not hide anything for himself and is not lazy at all. Obviously, these people are quite envious of their Ljiakan people, especially the strong men of Ljiakan, who see them training every day. Those workers who are tired from working can't help but run outside their training ground during their breaks, and they will run and jump according to their training methods, although they don't understand what they are doing. But it can be seen that these strong men in Jiakan are different from them. When they fight and train with each other with sticks without spear points, they can see that they are murderous, which is more powerful than the officers and soldiers of the government. These refugees are not stupid at all. They naturally know that this wall is being built. Even though this village is small, the problem is that it is like a small city. Whether it is bandits or those marauding foreigners, it is very difficult to break through the city wall. It is definitely much safer to live here than the original village, which was completely undefended. They also want to live a normal life. Of course, Zhang Xiaoxiao and the others also hope that these people will stay. After all, they are a family of 400 people. Although there are inevitably many old and young people inside, the total number of strong men here is more than 100. If all these 100 men are trained, the strength of the entire Jia village will definitely be improved by more than one level. Even if a large group of bandits came, they were not afraid. In the past, those who wanted to win over people from Linjia village just relied on the many strong men in Linjia village. If the two villages could not join forces and guard each other, they would inevitably be in a hurry when encountering attacks by bandits and the like in the future. After all, there are too few strong men in the village and there are too many people to protect. But for the 400 people in front of us, it is very clear that they are manpower. In ancient times, the most lacking thing was people. Many people died due to displacement and war. The population has been greatly reduced, so the most lacking thing is people. Representatives from 8 families approached Zhang Xiaoxiao and Li Shiniu and explained that they wanted to stay in the village. Li Shiniu looked at Zhang Xiaoxiao and saw that there was really nothing he could do. He was used to having Mr. Zhang as his backbone and doing whatever he said. Of course Mr. Zhang is indeed capable. Mr. Zhang, who can find a way for them to earn tens of thousands of taels of silver in one trip, is naturally better than him. They are scholars who are literate, smart, and highly skilled in martial arts. Such people are stupid if they don't learn from others or listen to others. Look at how much Mr. Zhang has done for their village. They are willing to use their money to build a city wall for the villagers to protect the entire village. On this point, they all have to listen to Mr. Zhang. Even though young Master Zhang is a girl, he is stronger than all the boys in their village put together. Although Li Shiniu is not very smart, he is sure of one thing. As long as Mr. Zhang says anything, he will definitely listen to it. Each household can tell at a glance that Mr. Zhang is the one who calls the shots here. Zhang Xiaoxiao definitely agrees, but he still has to say ugly things first. We all understand how everyone wants to stay, but you can also see that you want to stay. Arljia village is a small village with not much land. You have left such a large population, but the land in the village is actually not enough. Feeding so many people. If you want to stay, you can only go up the mountain to clear up wasteland by yourself. Of course, there are a lot of wastelands near us. If you plan to stay in the future, then everyone can share the blessings and share the hardships like a family. Our village naturally has its own way to get rich. In the future, we will build the city wall wider and enclose all the fields within the city wall. I believe those bandits and those foreigners will never bully us again. In recent days, you should have noticed that the strong men in our village are capable of fighting. I might as well tell you that the strong men in our village sell salt privately. These people have been trained and have seen blood. Our most powerful encounter was when we encountered 200 bandits. 50 people fought against more than 200 bandits, almost 1 against 4, and still defeated these people. I don't say this to intimidate or frighten you, I just hope you will think it over carefully. Coming here, you have to accept the fate of starting from scratch. What's more important is that everyone works together as one, and more importantly, obeys orders. 8 people nodded. They could say it so clearly because they were actually being kind to them, and all they asked was to obey orders. Where can they disobey other people's orders? In the village, you must obey the orders of the village elders, and when you leave the village, you must obey the orders of the officers, soldiers, and government officials. Even if you encounter bandits on the road, you must not obey the bandits' orders. In this case, as long as we can give them food, enable them to live a good life, and enable the family to survive, no matter who you listen to, it is not your fault. Mr. Zhang, we will listen to you from now on. We will do whatever you tell us to do. We are not afraid. As long as we can have enough to eat, we can do anything in this world. Leader Li Dahu hurriedly replied that when the road was most difficult to survive, he really thought about becoming a bandit. In fact, it was because his parents died in the hands of bandits, otherwise, he would really have become a bandit. You can't watch your family really starve to death like this, but now you don't have to be a bandit, you just follow orders. Dry. Zhang Xiaoxiao nodded, this is easy to handle. Li Shenyu took the people down directly, then took them to the government office and went through the formalities for settling in. After all, when so many refugees arrived in Jia village, they naturally had to help the government register their household registration. The government officials heard that this was a good thing. If the number 400 refugees were placed here in Fukan, they might cause trouble. Since they are willing to settle in the surrounding villages are also willing to accept these refugees. That is something that everyone is happy with, so naturally they will not stop it and help them go through the procedures immediately. And not eat a grain of rice from home. These 80 families don't even need to move their place. They lived in whose house they lived at first and who they still live in now. After all, that house has been empty for so long, and now it is considered their home. Suddenly I had a home, and I felt confident. Everyone couldn't help but feel happy. Of course, more importantly, Li Shenyu announced that all the young men from the 80 families who had settled there would be drawn out to join their 18-person training team in Jiakan. The game was unpacked and divided into 3 teams, each with about 50 people. Each team has a squad leader. Of course, this squad leader is elected by the strong men in the village. They are called squad leaders. The autumn harvest in Jiakan this year can be considered a bumper harvest. End of this chapter. The lucky bag is reborn with space. Author, Floating World. Chapter 930. Chapter 930 Robbery. Not only is Ljia village having a good harvest, but also more than a dozen surrounding villages are having good harvests this year. Linjia village has a particularly good harvest. Of course, Linjia village is now considered wealthy. After selling the snowflake salt, Linda Wang began to get carried away. More than 20,000 taels of silver were obtained, and he also had the secret recipe for making snowflake salt. Linda Wang immediately wanted to walk sideways in the village. Every household in Linjia village has built a house with blue bricks and large tiles. Many families have even bought cattle, and some are busy preparing to marry wives. With money, it is natural that the wife and children will be on the hotbed. Linjia village is in full swing, and many villagers around it are envious. Linjia village has suddenly become the envy of many neighbors. The elder of the Linjia village clan is a little worried. Will such a high profile cause any disaster? It is a pity that Linda Wang insisted on having his own way. Linda Wang has never been so prosperous in his life. He has never seen that with the introduction of the Wu family's chief steward, he can find a vacancy for his younger brother as a government servant in the city. Their family will soon become official servants, who dares to worry about people from the government yamen. That night, Linda Wang suddenly woke up in the dead of night. There was a rustling sound in the yard. Hurriedly put on his clothes and took out his big knife. A masked thief is opening the door. Linda Wang shouted, "There is a thief, get up quickly." Everyone in the room, old or young, got up. Unfortunately, the door has already been opened, and 5 thieves with big knives rushed in. They fought with Linda Wang. Linda Wang could not defeat the 4 palms with 2 fists. What's more, with 5 people, he can't do anything alone, and there will always be omissions, even if he fights hard. But in the past month or so, he has become accustomed to that kind of lazy life. He has not even practiced boxing a few times these days. Not to mention that it is a bit weak to pick up a big knife now. For more than a month, I only ate wine and meat, indulged in drunkenness and dreams every day, and finally lived a good life. Linda Wang feels that the life he is living now is the life of a talented person, and he wishes he could also become a wealthy landlord. I drink and eat meat all day long, how could I have thought of getting into a fight with someone today? Holding a knife, although he looked at the dancing tiger and tiger showing off his power, in fact, he was the only one who felt bitter in his heart and felt soft in his hands and feet. In this case, he couldn't resist these 5 people at all. Seeing that 3 people had rushed into the house, and hearing the screams in the house, he was trembling in his heart. One was accidentally slashed in the stomach by a thief, and another thief stabbed him in the chest. Linda Wang suddenly fell to the ground. In a short time, the whole village was in a state of panic. Many houses have begun to burst into flames, and it seems that the houses are already burning. Handled people were running around the village. Some strong men finally realized what they were doing, and everyone began to organize in groups of 2.5 to resist. However, the thieves had already taken the opportunity to steal the food, loot the money, and burn down the house. They evacuated the people in a big way. The people in the village were in tears. The whole home was in flames. A group of thieves passed by Linjia village. The rapid sound of horse hooves was heard by the big cow on the wall of Linjia village. He hurriedly took out his gong. After a few crisp sounds, the sound of the gong was heard far away. The villagers of Linjia village immediately stood up with weapons in hand, and swarmed up the wall in a noisy manner. They saw the black bandits galloping away with their horses. Looking again, he could see the fire in the distance. Li Shaniu couldn't bear it. Looking in that direction was Lin Jiakan. Linda Wang did not deal with them. Although Linda Wang did an excellent job, the villagers did nothing wrong. To kind-hearted people like them, it would be unreasonable to refuse to save someone. Just by looking at the mountains of swords and sea of fire in the distance, one could tell that the target of the bandits must be Linjia village. At this time the bandits have gone far away. Hearing the cries over there, they knew that someone must have died. If they didn't go to rescue them, they wouldn't be able to get over this hurdle. If one day, their Linjia village encountered such a thing, wouldn't they hope to get help from others? Li Shaniu hesitated and hurriedly asked Zhang Xiaoxiao. Master Zhang makes the decision here, and considering what Linda Wang did in the first place, it would make sense if Master Zhang was unwilling to help Linda Wang from the bottom of his heart. Li Shaniu has long made up his mind that whatever young Master Zhang says will be whatever he says. If young Master Zhang refuses to save him, they will definitely not have that kind intention. Mr. Zhang, shall we go and rescue people? Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Linjia village and said, let's all disperse. Leave a dozen people on the city wall to watch the night. Brother Li, find another 10 people and we'll go directly there in a carriage. The rest of the people should go back to sleep. It's time to rest. It's okay, don't go out and run around. Li Shaniu felt relaxed instantly. It seemed that Mr. Zhang was a kind and righteous person. Even though Linda Wang did such an inhumane thing, Mr. Zhang didn't do it right at all. Instead, he took someone over to take a look. Zhang Xiaoxiao and the other 10 people drove 3 carriages directly to the entrance of Linjia village. They saw blazing flames all over the village. The villagers were busy putting out fires and rescuing people. There were cries and cries everywhere. One slice. The arrival of the 3 carriages made the villagers even more frightened, but when they recognized Li Shaniu, many people shouted in surprise. Everyone remembered that it was Li Shaniu who brought Mr. Zhang to their village and took them on a journey. Broad road. Now it's like seeing a savior. Li Taizu jumped off the carriage and Zhang Xiaoxiao looked around. There were countless dead and injured people. Zhang Xiaoxiao motioned to the surrounding villagers to be quiet. What are the casualties in the village now? The best way is to carry all these injured people to the threshing floor. I know a little bit about medical skills and can help them treat them briefly. The remaining people should put out the fire. To sort out the losses, of course some people go to the doctor. At the beginning, she put all the medical equipment and medicines in the space into another world, and built the most advanced hospitals and medical equipment there. Who would have thought that when we came here today, except for a first aid medical kit left behind, there was nothing in the space, not even medicine. Although Zhang Xiaoxiao can perform simple suturing and treatment, doctors must prescribe medicines to reduce inflammation, reduce swelling and even stop bleeding. She alone will definitely not be able to save these people. The people of Linjia village were very happy. In this era, there was no doctor in the village, not even in the nearby towns. You have to go to the farthest prefecture to invite a doctor, but at this time, it takes at least 5 or 6 hours for them to come and go, and whether the doctor wants to come or not is the same thing. Now that Mr. Zhang can save people, he is like the voice of the Buddha from heaven. Li Shenyu and a dozen other strong men immediately joined the rescue mission of the villagers in Linjia village. All the injured were carried to the threshing floor, where Li Taihua helped Zhang Xiaoxiao check and treat the injured. End of this chapter.